So there were also, in addition to the income tax cuts in the bill, we also mixed in three things that the governor needed to be able to balance his budget. One of them was the streamlined sales tax project. There was also language in there that expanded Missouri's nexus authority, so if you, as far as you can under the federal law. And there was a provision in there on taxpayer amnesty. Those provisions all produce money, and the governor had counted on all of those passing when he delivered his budget to the legislature. So we combined all of those things in here. The streamlined sales tax project is very large, about 200 pages worth of changes that have to be made to our sales tax law to make it consistent with other states' sales tax laws. That's what the streamlined sales tax project does. And some of us had some very detailed conversations over definitions in that bill and what it would have meant. We made sure that we got that as much as we could. We thought we had scrubbed it pretty well. That language started with the Department of Revenue. We actually worked with the Department of Revenue over the last 2 years on that, and I remember going through line by line with the guy who is now their legislative liaison. This year, they submitted a draft to the legislature. The legislature redrafted it, sent it back to them. They signed off on it, and that became the version that was filed by about 5 different people. And from the very beginning, this had a mistake in it. There was a bracket that was placed 3 words to the right of where it really was supposed to be. That's the difference that we're talking about. A bracket that was placed 3 words to the right of where it needed to be to make the sentence complete. What that meant was it accidentally would have undone the prescription drug sales tax exemption. Not something that anybody wanted to do, not something the governor intended when he asked for the legislature to pass the streamlined sales tax project language, not something the legislature intended. It was a mistake. The good thing is that mistake doesn't kick in until January 1st of 2015. So we have the entire 2014 legislative session to fix this as well as any other problems that come up before it actually becomes law. And we don't even have to have a special effective date. We can do this on a regular bill. So we told the governor to go on and sign the bill anyway. You know, it was interesting though to me, the first bill was filed February 7th. It had the mistake in it. All of us missed it. The Department of Revenue missed it. They actually testified in a hearing in support of the language in a House hearing on the bill, which is very rare. They don't usually take positions in support of legislation, but they did on this one because it was important to the governor's budget to get this thing passed. So the Department of Revenue testified in favor of the language. They didn't find the mistake from February 7th all the way through May 17th when the legislature ended. So they didn't identify the mistake. But less than 2 weeks after the end of the legislative session, suddenly they find the mistake. Now we know, those of us who are close to it know that that probably was not intentional. They do a thing called a bill review at the end of the legislative session, and they go through each line and look at the impact of each line, and they prepare that for the governor. I don't think that was a poison pill that was put in the bill. I don't think it was put there like the sales tax increase was in the other bill as a poison pill. I think it was something that was truly a mistake. And it's unfortunate that it happened, but we do have time to fix it before it actually becomes law. So that streamlined sales tax portion did have that mistake. There may be other mistakes that we find as we go through here. Now, one of the other things that the governor has talked about is the fact that it eliminates the sales tax exemption, the state sales tax exemption for textbooks. That's an intended consequence of the streamlined sales tax project because you have to have the same exemptions at the state level that you do at the local level. And that's one that when it was enacted, they only did the sales tax on for the state sales tax portion on textbooks. They did not do the local tax portion on textbooks. And so that's one that has to be straightened up. You have to either completely exempt it or completely tax it. The governor's office chose to completely tax it. So while he talks about the textbook thing, that actually came from his Department of Revenue, which is kind of frustrating to see because most people don't focus on this as closely as we do, and a lot of people aren't understanding that that's something that really was an intended consequence and something that his Department of Revenue supported.